Bulavinaka, Namaste and good evening. I'm Vijay Narayan. You're watching Fiji Village Trade Talk. This week we are at the office of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Professor Biman Prasad. A lot to be discussed. What has happened in the last 2 years? The coalition government started, it was formed on Christmas Eve in December 2022. And how things are progressing, what more needs to be done, what has been assessed so far, and what are the thoughts of the Minister for Finance, the man with the purse. Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to come on the show and also to allow us to film this show in your office.
My pleasure, Vijay, as always, talking to the media.
Our constitution review. We are just days away from Parliament sitting. It has already been stated that a bill will be going to Parliament to look at specific sections of the constitution, mainly in relation to amendments, where the 75% of support needed in Parliament and 75% of support needed for total number of registered voters in the country to make an amendment to that. What is expected, and do you expect the 75% support to be coming from within Parliament?
Yeah. So Vijay, I think you raised a very important question, and in that question you've also laid out very clearly the difficult position in the Constitution itself. And the only reason why that has been the case, because the military government's own process of constitution making, which they laid down in Decree 57 and 58 in 2012, was not followed. They had a Constitution Review Commission which produced the report. They threw out that report. Then they were supposed to take the new draft to a Constituent Assembly, which they didn't. And so it was, as been observed by many constitutional experts, that it was one or two man constitution, which had absolutely no input from the people of Fiji. And the provisions in this constitution, you quite rightly point out, the 75% majority in Parliament, and then once that is done, you then go to a referendum and you are required to get 75% majority of all the registered voters. I mean, how ridiculous that provision is. You know, in a normal situation, in the last election, less than 75% of the people actually went to vote. So what the government has done is we are going to take the bill to Parliament, and we are hoping that members from the opposition side also recognize the flaws in the 2013 constitution, and that there would be consensus, to take forward the review and perhaps, later on look at what the Constitution Review Commission is going to come up with. That has already been announced by the Honourable Prime Minister, and it is also put together with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the reason why the Honourable Prime Minister has taken this approach, because he knows himself, and he led the 1997 Constitution making process with the NFP leader at that time, Justice Jairam Reddy. And so he knows very well that that is the process of constitution that is needed. And all this, Vijay, is being done. Some people are saying, why, review the constitution? Why is it so urgent? It is urgent because part of the problem that we've had in this country, is our inability to move on with democracy, with freedom of media, with respect to human rights, etc. And this is the first time that we have a government since independence in Fiji's 54-year history, that a government that has changed from one lot to another has actually lasted for more than a year. And we are now, we have already completed 2 years, and this is good for Fiji. And so all this relook at the Constitution, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is going to set this country on a path of sustainable growth, unity and prosperity. Because unless you have that, you can't, none of your economic policies can work if you don't have that unity, if you don't have that respect for a constitution that is supporting, freedom, growth, inclusivity, and that is the basis on which this government has brought this. And this is not a surprise. All of us, NFP since 2014, in our first manifesto under this constitution, we had said that we will seek a review of this constitution. So it is not a surprise. It is part of our commitment that we made to the people.
There's some anxiety from some of the sections of the community that it may become a constitution that is more along racial lines. What are your comments on that?
See, those are the people who have always, and I can understand, those kind of opposition that will come from some of them who were part of this constitution making, who were part of the military regime. So the easiest thing for them to say is, it will be a racist constitution. Look at the 1997 constitution. Yes, when we had the 1990 constitution, that was a racist constitution, and people recognized that, and it was changed. So this constitution has many provisions, particularly the separation of powers, executive arm of the government, the legislative arm of the government. There are a lot of flaws in this constitution that needs to be corrected. And so I think those anxiety is misplaced. As I said, the Honorable Prime Minister, who was who led the widely acclaimed formulation of the 1997 Constitution, knows this very well, and I have confidence in him that whatever constitutional review process that we undertake, it will be a constitution that will be for the people, that will bring about unity, that will bring about inclusivity in our governance and our progress in the future.
Now, Professor Prasad, we are at your office. We know you came here 2 years ago. You had to look into the financial books on what's happening. Firstly, from a financial and delivery perspective, from your perspective, what do you believe you have done that has improved the standard of living for the people of Fiji?
So there are three important things that we've done, Vijay, and I'm not bragging about it. Of course, my critics will say that, I'm bragging about it. But if you look at what we did in 3 years, and the result of what we did is now being seen. So let me just start by our first budget. When we came in 2023, we recognized that people were still transitioning from post-COVID, from COVID to post-COVID. The first thing we did, we looked at the budget of the previous government and we identified the expenditure, and we redeployed $50 million and gave $200 each to more than 200,000 students in 2023. That was a very, very innovative scheme that the government immediately implemented. We were not thinking about the election. We were thinking about the people, helping our children getting into the school. And in the first budget, we recognized that the previous government had left a load of debt on us. We were in a situation where government was not even funding itself. There was all these populist policies. They were only thinking about how to please the people so that they can get the votes. We didn't do that. And if we hadn't done that in 2023-2024 budget, the pain on the people would have been much bigger. So what has happened since 2023, Vijay? We were focused on making sure that we deliver for the people. But we also knew that government's fiscal space, you have a debt level of $10 billion. You're paying about $1 billion out of your $4 billion budget towards debt servicing. You had to do something to also raise revenue. So we reformed the tax system, and we didn't just burden the ordinary people. There were 3 rates of bet. People have forgotten that under Ayaz and Baini Marama, there was a VAT of 15%, single rate of VAT of 15%, which was then reduced to 9%. And then they brought 3 rates, which we were pushing for: 0 rates on basic food items, and 9 and 15. And there was a lot of revenue leakage because of these 3 rates. So we rationalized it, we removed the 9, so we kept 0 and we added basic medicine. So 22 items, Vijay, are still VAT free. The critics don't acknowledge that, they don't even talk about that we still have 22 items including free medicine. So if you get a prescription, you go and to the pharmacy, you don't pay any VAT on that. Plus what we did, the additional revenue that we collected by raising company tax from 20 to 25, few other taxes, Fiji water tax, people are misinterpreting that, we're actually getting more revenue. And because we were able to increase all our revenue from $500 to $600 million, through those tax reforms, we not only were able to put that money in the first budget, we increased the social welfare by 15 and 25%. We wrote off $650 million debt. That was another disaster that was left for this government to sort out. $160 million given to students, there was no record. Students just went, took the money, didn't do anything. And so all those $653 million, which was a burden on 53,000 families, we lifted that. Imagine a low-income family student coming from Bua or Reki or somewhere from a school, doing a 3-year or 4-year degree, getting out of the university, Vijay, on their head, on their family, this 30 to 40,000 or 50,000, depending on the duration of the course or the nature of the course, debt that they would carry on the day they start working. Instead of helping the family, instead of saving money to buy a house or land, they were paying debt. We have lifted that burden. We increased social welfare allowances. We increased the sugar price. First time in the history of this country, sugarcane farmers are getting. Government topped it up. If we didn't collect this revenue, this reform that we did in the 2023-2024 budget, we would not have been able to do any of those things for the people. And I think the people know, the critics know that the people know that this government has spent all that additional money that we have earned. And we did another thing, Vijay, in the 2023-2024 budget. We reduced the deficit from as high as 7% to about within the range of 4 to 5%. And we brought down the debt to GDP ratio. And that trajectory is continuing. We are forecasting that by July 2025, our debt to GDP ratio will go down from as high as 90% when we came into government to about 78%. So that was the first budget. If I can continue, so in the second budget, we realized that food prices, even though the VAT was 0, if we are importing the item from New Zealand, Australia or US, and the prices have gone up there, the freight cost has gone up, with 0 VAT, prices went up. So we realized that it is not always just reducing taxes or VAT that will help people. You also need to raise people's income. So in the last budget, and as soon as we came in, the minimum wage went up to $4 on 1st of January 2023. Then we recognized that minimum wage needs to go up further. So from 1st of August 2024, in the last budget, we focused on income. So we raised the minimum wage to $4.50, and from 1st of April, it will be $5. In 16 years, under Baini Marama and Kiyum, minimum wage only went up by 68 cents. In 16 years, they were in the pockets They were pandering to the big businesses and certain lobby groups who didn't want minimum wage to go up. Now we're going to have $5. Most of the businesses, and I want to thank them, they understand that it is important for us to raise people's income. We've raised civil service pay between 8 to 10%. First time in the history of this country, civil servants would have got that kind of increase, at once. So now we have a situation after 2 years, in short. On one hand, we've stabilized our government finances. We have created so much confidence in the economy, and we can talk about, and it is because of the policies that we put in the two budget. The business community can see that now you have a government that knows how to run its economic policies, that knows that government needs to be funded, that knows that if we carry on, if we did what we were doing before, we would end up like what happened in Sri Lanka. And the burden and the pain on the people and everyone, including businesses, would have been much, much bigger. So in fact, we have saved the country from further disaster. And in tandem with that, with our economic policies, we have made the media free, we have brought real democracy. You go and talk to any business today. You can see what happened on Wednesday. People were free to ask difficult questions, write about it, and that itself is providing confidence in the economy. Investments have gone up, investment lending has gone up, every indicator that you look at. So the critics can't digest the good news, because before the election, they were lying about all these things. Social welfare will be gone, school fees will be... We have subsidized bus fares by another $23 million. So all this money, Vijay, has gone into helping the people.
Professor Prasad, some are saying that come the next elections, you may lose a lot of support and may not return to Parliament because you have been with Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka.
Yeah.
What are your comments on that?
Well, Vijay, those are the usual critics. So there were people who used that in 1999 when Jairam Reddy and our current Prime Minister worked together, SBT, NFP, and the campaign was, there's a sellout. The same narrative was repeated by Ayaz and Bainimarama for 8 years in Parliament. And all those MPs, who were sitting with them, they were parroting the same thing. And in the last election, Vijay, they went with the opposition to PA and NFP group, had one single narrative. Biman Prasad is going to go with Rambuka and there will be a sellout of people's rights. There will be a loss of economic rights. People will lose their benefits. Nothing of that sort happened. So I think some of them can continue to wish. NFP is not an overnight party. We have existed from the 1960s, and those who wish us to be washed away can continue to dream about it.
Cost of living continues to be an issue, and that's a global issue. We know there's external factors, but there's also certain measures that you have put in place, and there's internal factors. You spoke last week in relation to unscrupulous businesses also enjoying heavy protection from government, but not passing on the benefits to the people of Fiji. How are you dealing with this?
Vijay, that's a very good question, and you are absolutely right. The rising cost of living in some ways is a global issue. But if we compare what is going through in Australia, New Zealand, and in some of the other countries, then I am very pleased that some of the policies that we put in, as I said, we've maintained zero VAT on 22 basic food items. We have in the last budget, raised people's income. We are providing additional support through social welfare, subsidies for sugarcane farmers, non-sugarcane farmers, providing additional funding for Ministry of Health to continue with some of those subsidies. So all those social welfare schemes and support for our people, like back to school, in the last 3 years we've given about 150, close to about 120, $130 million directly to the students and their parents. So while we are doing that, we are also looking at how we can grow the economy, how we can provide more employment. And if you look at what has happened in the last 2 years, it's very clear that our economy has grown. Last year, every critic was saying, the tourism numbers will go down, the economic growth will go below 2%. We actually revised our growth forecast from 2.8% to 3.8%. And this year we are projecting 3.4%, and it could be more. So all that itself is creating jobs and raising people's income. Together with the minimum wage rise, we feel that we are providing ample support, ample avenue for people to raise their income to cushion or mitigate the impact of price rises, particularly for food. And as you said quite rightly, some of this is externally driven. Freight costs during COVID went up by 3, 4, 5 times. Although it's come down, it hasn't come down to a level that was there, pre-COVID. So some of those prices are still high. But the third important point that you raised, and we are dealing with this, and we are saying to these unscrupulous businesses, and businesses which are heavily protected. So when you protect businesses by duty, Vijay, the simple economics of that is this. If we charge high duty, we are expecting those industries, those players that are protected to raise production here. For example, we are giving 42% duty protection to chicken producers. Now we expect them, we want to support them, grow their industry. We expect them to produce all the chicken that the country needs. But if they are not investing in the factories and farms and producing more chicken and satisfying the demand and using the shortage to raise prices when we can't allow others to import, we have quantitative restrictions as well. I'm choosing this as an example because, and there are others like that as well, who are protected, but they do not pass the price to the consumers. So that is unacceptable. And the government is going to come hard on our policies, and we would look at this very carefully in the next budget, because we can't let our people suffer because we continue to protect industries, and then they don't improve the efficiency, they don't raise production so that the prices can be maintained at a reasonable level. So I think that's a very important point that you've raised, and government has already indicated that. I'm saying this very publicly, that we have to find ways, businesses have to cooperate with the government to work towards a situation where prices are reasonable for our people in some of the key areas, particularly meat and other products.
The bill to amend the Employment Relations Act, there's been consultations. Of course, there was a draft bill that was presented, and there was consultations, and I believe the consultation period has been extended. Issues have been raised about the fines, the leave and harassment issues from employers. Government's message, what is it to the people based on the concerns being raised by the employers and the unions saying that everything that has been proposed, which they have said should be implemented?
Well, the good thing, Vijay, is this, that this government or our government has brought that freedom within the trade union movement. We recognize the role of trade unions. We recognize the role of our employers, our businesses, and how the government, the tripartite mechanism, government, employers, and unions, that's what we have valued, that's what we have respected. And the Employment Relations Act, the draft Employment Relations Act that is being discussed, obviously has issues, and we recognize that. You know, for example, quantum of fines, a criminalization of the ERA, a definition of management threshold, things like overtime eligibility, some of the drafting issues there. So these are issues that we've heard very clearly from the employers. The unions also have to understand that we need to work together. And government is a major employer as well. So any law that we enact must make sense, must be agreed to by all the three parties within the tripartite forum. And I think I am confident that we can get out I know as the time has been extended, and I hope that a lot of the employers and businesses will continue to make submissions. Many have made submissions to us directly, to the government. And once the final draft, it comes to cabinet, then it goes to parliament, then it goes to the standing committee. So there's a lot of process still left, and I'm very confident that we will have an act, Employment Relations Act, which will be acceptable to all the three parties in the tripartite forum.
There's a lot of questions about the municipal council elections. The last one we had was back in 2005.
Yeah.
And we know that the previous government said they were reviewing the Local Government Act for years.
Yeah.
No elections were held. It was done, councils run through special administrators. A lot has to be done as far as local government is concerned. Are we having elections?
Yeah.
Because next year we expect the general elections.
Yeah. So, Vijay, the previous government lied to the people. They continued to lie for the 8 years that they were in government after the elections. We have not lied to the people. As soon as we came in, we started because, in 16 years, every infrastructure in every institution in the local government was completely destroyed. We have a new constitution. They put out a new electoral system. There are people in the elections office who are thinking that the same system that we are using for the national election should be used in the local government election. So this government has put out the draft legislation, changes to the act. It's being discussed. I think it's being finalized. And the last I talked to the Minister for Local Government, I'm told that the elections are likely to be held around September, October this year.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Oh my gosh! Oh, what's in the box?
You're probably wondering, what's in the box? Well, if you must know, it's actually me. Before you call the police, I'm actually an app. The all-new Fiji Village app. Here's an update. See what I did there? I gave you an update. What's new? Well, for starters, I look different. My new layout also comes with stories if you're looking for something short and sweet. I will bring you the latest news on the dot so you stay updated. You're welcome. You don't have to go anywhere for content because I bring the content to you. Not only can you listen to your favorite radio stations, you can also watch online video content. Which reminds me, do you love sports? Well, guess what? With the Fiji Village app, you can stay up to date with your favorite sports and scoreboards, no matter where you are. Your #1 news website just got better with an app. Download and get updated now.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan, and with the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Professor Biman Prasad. Professor Prasad, civil service costs and delivery are a major concern. What is the cost of our civil service at the moment, and what is being done about productivity and how we can reduce maybe this cost?
Well, first of all, let me say this, that quarter of our budget, more than $1 billion goes into civil service salaries. And again, Vijay, people say that I keep talking about what happened in the last 16 years because it's very important for people to know what happened and why this government is doing it. The civil service was thoroughly politicized under the previous regime, and in the constitution, the provision in this constitution says that the permanent secretary is the sole person, or permanent secretary has the powers to hire, fire, recruit, set the salary with the agreement of the minister, not in consultation, with the agreement of the minister. So essentially, the different ministries, they kept recruiting because you had the budget, you could hire 5 people instead of 2 people. So the civil service has grown over the last 15-16 years under the military and the Fiji First regime. And so when we came in, obviously civil servants were on contract. We did bring permanent contract with good intention. And people now have the civil servants now have that security of tenure. But what has happened, in my view, also is that it has led to this transition where people feel that now because they have permanent job, they can afford to be a bit slack, if I can use the term. But what we are saying, there are some really brilliant, hard-working, civil servants, and there are many of them. But I think the legacy of that institutional blockage and failure in the way it was managed has lived on. And what we are saying to our permanent secretaries, to our civil servants, is that it is very important for them because they are the oil. If they don't do things on time, I'll give you an example. If somebody applies for a building permit, the bank has approved, say $500,000 loan, and the investor or the person wanting to do the job, if he or she or the investor has to wait for 4 or 5 months, then that money that is sitting in the bank is not going into the economy. So the opportunity cost of not doing things on time, holding approvals, keeping the bureaucracy going is a huge cost to the economy. But we are not just talking, Vijay, and I'll highlight what the government, and I must say that the DPM Kamkamida is doing an excellent job in making sure that we address some of these key challenges. For example, we now have what we call the Business Now Fiji, launch of the information panel, launching of the starting of a business subsystem. We have Business Now Fiji building permits approval subsystem. We are also looking at a fully digital investor-friendly Fiji. So some of these innovations that this government has brought, and it's happening under the leadership of DPM Kamkamida, we are confident that we will get our civil servants to understand this better, to see the imperative, for quick, efficient, decision making. But there is no doubt the public service and the Honourable Prime Minister has said this already, that the culture, that the way in which the civil service has been structured, over the last 10-15 years under the previous government, will take time to deal with, but we are confident that the more powers given to the Public Service Commission, the review that that was announced already in the last budget, when all that is completed, I think we would be able to rationalize. But it's also very difficult when you see one of the things, Vijay, that people don't understand, that to change things that has been created and lived on for 10, 15 years is not always easy. It takes a while before you can replace, something that has been in the system. For example, we are trying to bring back PWD. A lot of the roading issues that people complain now, it's precisely that. Because PWD had all these depots, structures throughout the country. Things were fixed on time, even if they were not that productive, which was the argument that was used when it was abolished. So bringing that back, re-establishing some of those infrastructure will take time, but we are confident that a lot of work has gone in it already, and that it will be up and running and will provide much needed work that needs to be done, particularly in the rural areas. And of course, right now the weather is not helping for the last 3 months.
My question about civil servants, just the slack civil servants, the slack service.
Yeah.
I think people who are on the receiving end, they want that tough action is taken so that efficiency comes in, and also to ensure that we have a measurement system in place. So who can the public contact if they know that the things are not really efficient when they go to the offices?
No, Vijay, you're right. I mean, for example, with these vehicle reviews, we have sent out a very stern message. We put in GP systems. We've got number plates where people can call. If they feel that civil servants or drivers are misusing government vehicles. So we are doing that. But you're right. We want to make sure that our disciplinary processes, the Public Service Commission, will have to ensure that the disciplinary process is fast and efficient, so that we can deal with deviant civil servants, those slack ones. In any organization there is always this normal curve. You have on one side you have the best performers, then the bulk of them in the middle, and then you probably have 8 to 10% who always have issues. And I think, as I pointed out the other day, that we need to increase productivity, not only of our civil servants, but also workers in the private sector. And many businesses are having serious problems. When on average 30 to 40% of people don't turn up for work in a day, that's a very, very serious issue with respect to productivity. So when we're looking at the Employment Relations Bill, my message to the unions is they should also look at how we can help work together to improve productivity with the employers, with government, and with the unions.
Now, after analyzing the financial books for about 2 years now, you've seen the trends and you've also seen the historical trends. What are some of the instances of wastage and poor financial management that you have taken into account, which also cost the country millions of dollars?
Well, Vijay, all we're doing right now and what we have done in the last 2 years is to put in good policies. So what we've done, we put in 2 years, we put in a new financial management system, where we can look at real-time data, where we can look at real-time, completion of projects. That was not there before. We are strengthening our audit offices. We're going through the Audit Act is now being discussed by the Standing Committee. We are looking at how we can strengthen those governance institutions that will stop that kind of misuse and expenditure that doesn't bring value to money. So building, for example, this 5-kilometer road, spending close to about $70 million, the Queen Elizabeth Drive. What is the opportunity cost of doing that as opposed to putting all that money in fixing all the health centers around the country, or fixing all the rural roads or drainage? What is the opportunity cost of losing $30 million you went down the drain in creating these new technical colleges? What is the opportunity cost of spending $30 million which went down the drain for FNU campus? So if we add all that, and if you look at the opportunity cost and why people, I could go on and on about the misuse, but also value for money. Okay, you might have got all this contract legally done, but was the project worth 30 million? Was it worth 70 million? Or was it worth 4 million? These are questions. And I remember when I was in opposition, the question I was asking, in Parliament about value for money, then Ayaz went and changed the standing orders that the Public Accounts Committee, and when you talk about it, he says, Biman Prasad should, leave those things and move on. The point is, if you don't talk about what happened, if you keep the same standing order, if you keep the same laws that he made to suit himself and to suit his cronies, then you're not going to change anything. And some of those people who were responsible for that, they don't want anything to change. And there are people in the system that they left who don't want things to change because they think, no, that's the best way to do it. So in 2 years, Vijay, as I said, it's not easy to change 15 years of debt, 15 years of culture, 15 years of laws that have taken its root, and the people who have grown up with those laws and systems will also resist changes. So people have to understand that we are a government that is dealing with stuff that has been done over 15, 16 years. And when we come out and say that this is what happened, people can't quickly jump and say, oh, no, Biman Prasad continues to brag about what happened in the past. We have to, because if we don't, then we are going to do the same and repeat the same mistakes.
Let's talk about health. Why are the facilities run down? Why we still do not have medicines when people, you have discovered that in some areas there is medicine available, and you have started to find out that there's a few issues that are very concerning as well.
Let me start by saying this. This government inherited one of the most dilapidated state of health infrastructure in this country ever. You look at the two reports that has come out. You look at the World Bank report on health, which we got the World Bank to do it as an independent report. You look at the Australian government report. The report starts with the first sentence. Years of neglect of the CWM hospital has led to what we've inherited. But the good news is this. We've got a new system called M-Supply. Shortage of medicine, in my view, is going to be a thing of the past. We have worked out, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health. Some politicians said, there was shortage of medicine in Tavua Hospital recently. I called the SDMO there. There was no shortage. She said she just had the meeting with the heads of departments and there is no shortage of medicine. CWM, we've got the Australian government to fix the CWM hospital. There are 27 projects which is going to start immediately. We are equipping the hospitals, machines, operating theatres that were not working for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years are now being fixed. Nasori Health Center, for 10 years, Vijay was falling apart. 70,000 people were dependent on it. Has been fixed, and I want to thank the Australian government for the CWM project. We are also now the Indian 100-bed super specialty hospital is going to start soon, the construction work, and we are hoping that it will be ready in 18 months to 2 years. That will be another game changer. We were left with the Aspen Medical, HCF, and Ayaz doesn't want to talk about that. He, as I said in Parliament during the budget.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So what happened with Aspen Hospital? We know Aspen exists now.
Yeah.
And you are saying that Aspen was set up with FNPF coming in board as the main stakeholder.
Yeah.
And they own about
80%.
80%. FNPF owns 80%. Yeah. Was there an agreement with Aspen on how things will be done?
So it was set up, the idea of public-private partnership, Vijay, at that time was that Aspen, which will be the company that will run the hospital, but the company will be supported by FNPF, which will have 80% share. The IFC was involved in providing the agreement. There was a concession agreement which laid down very clearly what the company, Aspen and the HCF were supposed to provide before government will hand over Ba and Lautoka Hospital to them to start running. What Ayaz did just before the election, forced FNPF, forced everyone to say, I'm giving you the hospital. He gave both the hospitals without some of the conditions in the agreement met. So basically he wanted to do it before the election, and then he got, there were Miot Hospital, they contracted it, they came and did some heart surgeries, they are still doing that, and government is paying for it, because he wanted to show the people before the election that there will be free heart surgery in the country. But what that meant was that because we handed over the hospital, and it's not the fault of Aspen or HCF that the hospital was given to them without the agreements being made.
So you were saying it was rushed through?
It was rushed through.
What if Ayaz said, Kayum says all the time you get personal about these
No,
kind of issues?
it's not personal. It's about, and it's nothing personal. He, as Minister for Economy, on behalf of the government, handed because the agreement, the HCF, the IFC was working with the Ministry of Economy. The Ministry of Health didn't even know. There was no discussion with the Ministry of Health. This is what people are telling me now. So when we came into government, we looked at the expenditure, how much government was paying. Every little thing that gets done there in Ba-Lautoka Hospital is paid for by the government. And we saw these escalating costs. So we are now, we are working very well with the team, with Aspen, with HCF, with FNPF, and we are now saying that that agreement, the conditions on which these hospitals should be run, should be renegotiated. We should look at how much private patients, how we can bring the costs down to government, how we can provide the best services. All that, Vijay, is now being discussed, and in an amicable way. I must say that Aspen, HCF, FNPF, everybody's come on board. Everybody recognizes that what was forced onto them and what the government did was a disaster. And so we have taken on board, and this is a big thing that we are doing now. And I am confident that by the time we go into the next budget, we will have a very good agreement that will be in the interest of patients, in the interest of government, taxpayers, as well as the interest of FNPF and Aspen, who are running the hospital. That's a big task. There are legal implications, there are financial implications, and we are taking each step very carefully so that we don't end up like what we have now. And it was a very, very bad and poor decision.
Professor Prasad, the issue about medicine, I believe that medicine supply remains a concern.
Yeah.
And the government is looking at changing the source of the medicine supply, because we're currently getting all our medicine from Australia at the moment.
Yeah.
Plus the other issue that I've noticed while investigating is that there's many things, for example, tests for things that are being outsourced at the moment, when Ministry of Health could have those machines because they should have those machines.
Yeah.
Is there a trend that has continued from the previous government?
Absolutely, Vijay. And the two things I will tell you, and I think that's a very important question that you raised. So the two things that were happening. One, because during COVID, and there was a COVID measure, GPs were allowed to see patients and government was going to pay. After COVID, that continued. There were so many GPs doing that, and people were not going to health centers, and the investment in health centers was not being done. Money was going to the private players, and the cost just kept escalating. So we arrested that as well. For GP scheme, we said only people with a means tested 30,000 below and those on social welfare can go, and government will pay. The rest should go to major hospitals or other. So plus there were other private players where if you don't have like in Nandi, there was no biochemistry blood testing machine. I went there, soon after we got into government and found out, and one machine cost us about $500,000.
But why was there no machine?
There was no machine because there were people, government was promoting this. So if you don't have something in the public hospital, okay, go to some medical center and government will pay. So the private players were making money and sometimes making, more than they should have. So we put those machines in Nandi Hospital now. And you are right. So if you didn't have the machines at the CWM hospital, then you have to send patients to the private, to Oceania or somewhere where government will have to pay. And I think that culture also led to lack of attention in the public hospitals. So the people who were running it were not bothered because if the machine is not there, then they can just refer the patient to Oceania and government will pay whatever the charge is. So that's why things in some of the public hospitals deteriorated. On medicine, you are absolutely right. We don't know why we had a pharmacopoeia agreement that we could sign with India, for example. India is the world's pharmacy in many ways. Most of the countries, import, very good, cheap drugs, medicine from countries like India. So we are doing that now. I think part of our strategy with this new 100-bed super specialty hospital would be to also get this pharmacopoeia agreement done. The Minister for Health is visiting India in March, and I think very soon we will have that pharmacopoeia agreement signed, and we would be able to bring and source drug medicine that will be cheaper and that will become more efficient. And that's why I'm saying that shortage of medicine, in my view, in a very short period of time will become a thing of the past. And I want to thank people in the Ministry of Health, the Minister, the Assistant Minister, the peers. We have now realized, what needs to be done. What was being done in the past was not the best way that it should have been done. And already I'm getting good news that most health centers, hospitals have very little cases of shortage of drugs.
Professor Prasad, we know that water supply remains a concern in some areas. Suvarnosuri corridor, if you look at the corridor with Viria coming online, has taken off the pressure for the corridor. However, on the elevated areas, the concerns remain with Tamavua water treatment plant struggling to provide for the expansion that occurred without proper infrastructure development taking place up in Tamavua, Tadirua, Samambula, going towards that way. We know there's a pipeline that is being planned to be running from the Sawani end. How quickly will that be done, knowing that thousands of people are being affected almost on a daily basis?
Yeah. No, that's correct, Vijay. And as the Minister for Public Works, under whom the Water Authority of Fiji comes, I think they are working very hard. I'm told that to develop that whole infrastructure will probably take between 1 year to 18 months. But
the funds are allocated for it?
Funds are allocated. And the other issue is the water and sewerage infrastructure. We are just talking about water. Forget about talking about the sewerage infrastructure, because nothing in that area has been done for the last almost 20 years. And especially, during the reign of Bainim Ramayana years, for 15, 16 years. The only good thing they did was to get this Viria project with the Asian Development Bank started. And I think it was a good decision, a good project. It has solved all the water problems around Greater Nasori area. And the plans that the Water Authority of Fiji has in the next 18 months to 2 years, I think would solve a lot of these issues in Tamavua area and other surrounding settlements. But let me say that the reports that we have got, ADB, World Bank, we would need billions of dollars over the next 10 years to fix our sewerage infrastructure, plus replace some of the old age pipes, infrastructure that exist in the Water Authority of Fiji. The other thing that happened under the previous government is this: they were not funding any of these things. I mean, you talk to business people, you look at the water rate they pay. They're saying that, we can pay more. Even the people are saying that they might be able to pay more if they are assured that there will be constant water supply. So, Water Authority of Fiji didn't have that kind of funding. The Viria project was a loan funding from the Asian Development Bank to do even small upgrade of the infrastructure pipes that were there. So I think the government is working towards restructuring, looking at how these entities can be funded more sustainably, and whether there is a need to look at additional funding models so that these organizations are funded properly so that they can actually undertake infrastructure upgrade. I mean, if you leave an infrastructure that and you don't do anything, infrastructure that was built 40 years ago, what do you expect? That is why the pipes are busting every now and then. We now have Viria water supply. There is more pressure. People are getting good water in their taps, but it also damages these old pipes. The small landslide, the whole pipe, like what happened in Tamavua, goes bust. So we need to look at how the water strategy that they have produced is going to solve. But some of these things are not going to happen immediately, Vijay. The Water Authority of Fiji is aware, as a government we are aware that there are areas where there are serious water issues. But all I can assure on behalf of the government is that the plans are there, and as I said, this particular area, Tamavua and surrounding areas, the work is being done now.
I want to ask you about financial discipline, audit, the discipline of having timely audits so that you can see, as you said, in real time what's happening and to deal with it, not that a bad situation goes out of hand. Corruption, pilferage, wastage of the hard-earned tax dollars, abuse are some of the real concerns where it can be a major leaking tap. What is being done to ensure that people are held accountable? Because if that is not done, then the cycle just continues to repeat itself.
No, Vijay, you're absolutely right. We cannot just, so as I said to you earlier, we've got this new financial management system. We've got the new Audit Act that is now being, it's already before Parliament. Once it provides additional, and one of the things that when we were in opposition, that we kept talking about is the laxity on producing reports, financial reports, annual reports to Parliament. I mean, Fiji Airways annual report was presented to Parliament last year, and it is transparent, open, accountable. That didn't happen under the previous government. What we are trying to do now is to make sure that our, for example, if people want to buy our funds, it's now all electronic. I can see on my computer in real time. Our finance section would be able to see things in real time, what's happening, what's the expenditure utilization, whether the project has been completed or not. There's a lot more work still to be done, in terms of synchronizing and getting all this real-time information so that audits, annual reports, these things happen on time. We are strengthening our internal audit section within the Ministry of Finance as well, to ensure that we are on top of the game, looking at what happens in different ministries, and that the work of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament is supported by timely production of audit reports, annual reports. I think we have caught up in a big way in the last 2 years, because we are saying to different entities, government ministries, that we are not going to tolerate lateness in producing these reports. Because if you don't produce reports, you don't know how things have happened.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Oh my gosh! Oh, what's in the box?
You're probably wondering, what's in the box? Well, if you must know, it's actually me. Before you call the police, I'm actually an app. The all-new Fiji Village app. Here's an update. See what I did there? I gave you an update. What's new? Well, for starters, I look different. My new layout also comes with stories if you're looking for something short and sweet. I will bring you the latest news on the dot so you stay updated. You're welcome. You don't have to go anywhere for content because I bring the content to you. Not only can you listen to your favorite radio stations, you can also watch online video content. Which reminds me, do you love sports? Well, guess what? With the Fiji Village app, you can stay up to date with your favorite sports and scoreboards, no matter where you are. Your #1 news website just got better with an app. Download and get updated now.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Professor Biman Prasad. Professor Prasad, growing the gross domestic product or GDP, absolutely critical for any country. What is being done? What more can be done by our country to continue to grow the GDP? We know tourism contributes to 40% of the GDP. Definitely we can do more, and diversification is also a key factor.
So, Vijay, let me start with those important figures that you quoted. So, yes, tourism represents 40% of GDP, but the other 60% comes from other activities as well. And so we recognize that, and as soon as we came into government, our focus, apart from fiscal discipline, apart from looking at how we can manage debt, apart from tax reforms to fund government properly, we also realize that you cannot reduce the debt or deficit without having growth. So, in tandem with these policies, we have also focused, and we are working very hard. The Minister for Trade, DPM Kamkamida, is out there, making sure that we are able to provide support, additional, processes so that things become more efficient. And as I pointed out earlier, there are a number of areas where we are trying to improve the ease of doing business. We also ensure there's a lot of pressure by international agencies for us to look at our interest rate. The interest rate and our financial position is very strong, our liquidity is strong, our foreign reserves are strong, and that has allowed us to keep the interest rate low, and that itself, Vijay, has spurred the confidence and the investment. So if you look at investment lending as of the end of last year, it went up in 2024 by about 24%. Almost $1 billion worth of projects are currently being implemented. I'm told by the chair of the Trade and Investment Bureau that close to about $3 billion worth of projects are in the planning and conceptual stage. So we recognize that there are potential in the resource sectors. The tourism development project for Banua Levu that we signed last year, the World Bank project, which is a 10-year project, is creating a lot of confidence in Banua Levu. In fact, Banua Levu economy, I would say, is actually booming. There is a lot of investment that is taking place, not only in terms of increased agriculture production such as rice and sugar and other crops. We are also seeing a lot of private sector investment in Banua Levu. We have provided additional funding in the last 2 budgets for the agriculture sector, and we are happy that the support we are providing, such as subsidies, which were never provided before to non-sugarcane farmers, subsidies for fertilizer and weedicide, that sector, the resource sector, is picking up as well. So what we have done, Vijay, and it's showing very clearly that our growth rate has gone up last year, not completely just based on tourism. Yes, tourism did very well, contrary to the expectation or the commentary that we used to hear. The tourism numbers went up by about 5%. So, and we expect tourism to remain. Our remittances are very strong. So all that is helping GDP growth. And our projection is this, Vijay, it will take about 10 to 15 years for us to bring the debt to GDP ratio down to 50 or 60%, but that will be contingent upon us having a growth rate of between 4.5 to 5% annually. And I'm confident that we can achieve average of 4.5 to 5% growth if we are able to put in all the reforms that we're doing now. You talked about immigration. That was a big issue, still is an issue in some sense, but there is a lot of work that is going now. We have a Minister for Immigration solely in charge of immigration, and we are expecting a lot more things to happen now and a lot more efficiency and the ability of the ministry or the Department of Immigration to facilitate work permits, visa. We've made some changes. We are thinking the government is in the current. Government is actually formulating a national population policy, and we want to look at within the national population policy agenda issues about because we are a small island economy. Our population has not really grown the way that you would expect in a developing country like ours. So we are also having serious issues with respect to skills. Our people are leaving. There's been a global labor market restructuring, post-COVID. So apart from putting a lot of money in terms of training more people, getting new institutions to offer training, we are also allowing people to come in. And we may in the future have to look at, skill migration, people who want to come and retire, digital nomads, people who would want to come and stay here on longer term visa. So we are looking at all those innovations. We had already decided in Parliament last year that those who want to come back, the descendants of the citizens of Fiji, those in the Bolanikaumbula, and those who can prove that their grandparents or their parents were citizens of the country at the time of independence, if they're living in Canada, or Australia, New Zealand, America, if they want to come back to Fiji, they can come, live and reside here without having to get another passport. So we are looking at how we can, streamline those. I think the systems that needs to be put in place in different embassies and at the airports within the immigration department has not been done yet, but I think it will be done and it will facilitate our diaspora. In fact, there has been so much interest, Vijay, in the last 2 years from our diaspora to come back and invest, and many of them have done that. So all that I think is helping us to diversify the economy and put in the fuel and other ingredients for further economic activities, further investment in all the sectors of our economy, and it shows in the GDP growth that we saw last year and what we are expecting in 2025.
Another factor that no previous government has managed to tackle well is the utilization of land. There's a lot of arable land. 92% of land in Fiji is E2K land. What is the plan going forward to ensure that there's more utilization of that land, which results in more returns for the E2K landowners and those who are leasing that land for productivity purposes, including things like agriculture?
Yeah, I think that again is also a very important question, and land is a big, important factor in any production process, whether it's agriculture, whether we are looking for land to build housing, whether it's land for industries, whether it's land for... So land is, as you quite rightly point out, is a central factor of production, of economic activity in any country. You have land, labor, you have capital, you have technology, but land, as you said quite rightly, is very, very important. And if we don't make the administration of land, the availability of land, the things like subdivision, creating efficiency in the leases, we will not be able to make land as available as quickly as is it required to. And I know we have a problem with that. We have problems with respect to the efficiency in our town and country planning, in our titles office, in other agencies where it's not so much, sometimes the reluctance of the landowners or the availability of land. I think that a lot of the problems that exist in the administration and management and facilitation of appropriate leases. So, if it takes 1 year to approve a plan for subdivision, if it takes months to register a title or a lease title, then it is going to slow down investment. So the government, I think the task force, and which is very ably, as I said, led by the Deputy Prime Minister Kamida, is really designed to build all this into systems where this can be efficiently done. I don't think it's a case of the landowners not wanting to lease their land. But it's more the case of how quickly, how efficiently, how effectively the TLTB, the Lands Department, the Registrar of Titles are able to facilitate that. So to me, that's a bigger issue rather than, the willingness or the availability of land. As you said, some of this land is lying idle because people have not been able to subdivide it or provide the necessary approvals for infrastructure, etc., so that people can start using the land. It's very difficult for an investor, even if they have a lease, if the infrastructure is not there: water, road, electricity. So with land, these three factors are also very important. And so what we have put in place, and I think some of it is working now, the processes that are there, and it may take a little bit longer than what we expected, but a lot of thinking and a lot of work is being done in that area.
We're talking about immigration reforms. Why do we keep running out of passports?
Well, good question.
A lot of people are very frustrated.
We shouldn't have been in that situation, and we should never be in that situation. That's my position. I don't know exactly whether it was to do with the procurement, whether it was due to the availability on the other side where these passports are produced, but we should, in my view, plan better, and there is no excuse that we should be running out of passport.
Is it a financial issue?
It's not a financial issue. It's absolutely not a financial.
So most of the things.
A lot of the times people think it's.
I just wanted to ask you that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, some of the things like the medicine, the facilities, the passports, there's some suggestion that it's an issue about government not having money. Can you clarify that?
That's nonsense, complete nonsense. When there is no shortage of funding for medicine, there is no shortage of funding for things that the Ministry for Health needs, and the Minister himself has said publicly. So, some of those people who in the social media, make this conjecture that government has run out of money is absolute hogwash, as Honorable Usamate says all the time, and nonsense. It is not true. I think sometimes the problem is efficiency, effectiveness in procurement, in planning, getting things done. That's pretty clear. There is no shortage of money for things like passport, for things like medicine, basic things that people need.
Now, Deputy Prime Minister, another issue, it's been there's been calls for an immediate setup of a fully fledged drug rehabilitation center. We know that there's been a rise in drug addicts in the country. St. Giles Hospital unable to keep up with it, and there's HIV/AIDS cases, HIV now declared as an outbreak in the country. From your perspective, how soon do we expect a fully fledged drug rehab center to be set up? How immediately can it be set up?
So, Vijay, again, this whole issue of drug, this is not something that this government just landed and discovered or has happened in the last 2 years. This is what we have today, the big problem of drug, the big problem of looking after people who need rehabilitation is a result of years of neglect, turning complete blind eye on the problems, and it was done, these things were ignored at the highest level of government in the past, and this has festered right across our society. It has destroyed probably one generation of our people who were addicted to this drug. This government had the leadership, had the guts to take this head on. So we are not only now busting drug groups, we are not only charging more people, we are not only thinking about putting a strategy. So we brought in this narcotic strategy, We have formed the Narcotics Bureau. We are working on rehabilitation centers, and you are right. I mean, people are telling me that St. Giles is basically keeping people who could quite easily be in a drug rehabilitation center. And so the answer to your question is, yes, a lot of work is being done. There are some, for example, the prison. A lot of the drug was being used and traded even in the prison department, according to the Commissioner of Prison. So they are trying to set up, drug rehabilitation there. We are looking at, drug rehabilitation centers in the Western Division. The Minister for Women, Social Protection and Children is also involved in it. And as a government, we are looking at a significant amount of funding in the next budget to give effect to the work of the Narcotics Bureau, the implementation of the narcotics strategy, which includes setting up of efficient, effective, well equipped rehabilitation centers. These things take time, if you want to do this well, but I'm confident and I can assure you that this government has taken this head on. We now have a police commissioner who is on the go, and we are confident that drug trade, the menace of drug and its impact, the harmful impacts on our people will be significantly reduced in the next 1 or 2 years.
I hope countries like Australia and New Zealand are helping you out with the drugs, because at the end of the day, the end markets are meant for those markets.
We are working very closely. As you know, there are police officers, senior police officers, advisors from the Australian, New Zealand police force who are working with our police force. And that is one area where we have started getting things done. And if the previous government had listened to us when we were in opposition, we had called for a national inquiry into the drug menace when we were in opposition. That's when Frank went and punched Honorable Pio Tikondondua when he moved the motion and said, government needs to do this, because as I said, people at the highest level ignored what was happening in the country. I don't know why. But this government, you look at the number of people who are being arrested for drug-related offences in the last 2 years compared to those in the past, you will see a very clear trend of what this government has done.
Finally, the overall crime rate. The police commissioner, newly appointed police commissioner, Rusiati Tunravu, announced a crime rate increased by 23%, overall crime rate increased by 23% last month. That's compared to the same month last year. What is being done to assist the new police commissioner? We know he's hit the ground running. He definitely needs support. What is being done?
Well, as I said, in the last 2 budgets, in our view, we provided really good, adequate funding to the police. We would be happy to discuss with the new commissioner when we formulate the next budget. We feel that the allocation in the last 2 budgets were appropriate, and as the new commissioner has said, the reforms in the police force, the police reset, which was started by the former Minister for Police, for Home Affairs, all that I think is being supported very, very strongly by the government. We're being supported by, as I said, Australia, New Zealand. You have police officers there also working with them. So government is fully committed to provide all the support to the new Commissioner of Police and the new Minister of Police to tackle this issue of crime head-on. We are not saying that crime rate between 2023 and 2024 has not increased, contrary to some of those on the social media. What we are saying is that there is also unnecessary alarm being created with particular incidents. But if you look at the overall statistics annually, we recognize that in 2023 compared to 2024, crime rate was lower. It went up by about 4,000 in 2024. And you look at the components of that 4,000, whether it's drug related, whether it's theft. So there is definitely been an increase between 23 and 2024. But if you compare 23 with say 2019 or 2022, then it was lower in 2023. So that's what I was saying. I'm not saying that crime is not happening. I'm just saying that there are some alarmists out there who exaggerate and create unnecessary fear amongst our community, and they bring disrepute to the police, the hard-working police officers who day and night are trying to bring these things under control.
Professor Biman Prasad, thank you very much for accepting our invitation again, and on behalf of our listeners and viewers, for you to come on the show tonight, and we wish you all the best. No doubt it's not an easy path going from here onwards, because a lot is expected. You're also getting ready for the submissions for the new budget, 2025-2026 national budget, and we will be looking forward to that as it comes closer, and we expect you again. You will be coming and speaking to our listeners and viewers again.
Thank you, Vijay. And on the budget, we have already called for submissions, so I invite everyone to make the submissions as quickly as they can, and we look forward to that.
And that's your show for tonight. Until next week, have a great evening.